Hello everybody, today is October the 26th, 2018. I just had a game as the Black Pieces for FICS Teamleague 73, Tournament 73. And I did win. It was a tough fight, and you will see now that I'm going to do the post-mortem, you will see why White made a move that probably was just a delayed resign. I'm kind of confused myself because there was a lot of fight left in the game. It was pretty even and White had a lot of chances, but a lot of players I've noticed, especially on the internet, do not use all their time. I was down to 19 minutes in a 45-45 game, and my opponent was still around 42 minutes. So you could say that my opponent was using my time to think, but a lot of mistakes can be prevented by using your clock, especially with 45 minutes and guaranteed 45 seconds per move of free time. You have 45 seconds increment. That means when you make your move, it'll go up. So that's 45 seconds free time, even with 1 second left, or 0 seconds. Well, this is Areckx, and I am going to go over the game on Lee chess. And you might be able to see the move, this little spoiler here. But yeah, I for the first time, I'll show you really quick. I've been trying to get in the habit of looking up my opponent's statistics, specifically their openings. And I noticed that this player liked to use the Queen's Gambit accepted, and has the most wins with Queen's Gambit type openings. These are all Queen's Gambit or transpositions to the English opening. One of these is start with Knight F3, but transposes into the English opening. And I'm pretty comfortable with these openings. I play Queen's Pawn regularly nowadays, and it's a comfortable position for me. Allows me to think positionally, allows me to plan much longer, and I can memorize the openings probably more 25 moves in, whereas with the E4 openings and the Reti openings and the English openings, I pretty much mostly about tactics, which I like to play E4 when I'm feeling like it. Usually I play Sicilian as black against E4. Sometimes I go for E5. I've been studying the Ruy Lopez martial attack recently, but that's another video. So I looked up their opening and I said, okay, well, most likely they're going to play Queen's Pawn, and I'm just going to play the King's Indian style, which specifically I started playing the Grunfeld. And from what I've heard, most people around my rating, which is around 1400 to 1600 or 1200 to 1600, depending on my form. I'm trying to make a break to 1600 and 1800. I feel like I'm at that strength. I just need to focus, and I need to keep using my time, and I need to keep making sure that I don't make any mistakes or blunders. But yeah, I felt like, since this player liked to use Queen's Gambit, then I'll just go straight into an opening that this player, judging from the echo codes, I can't really tell, but doesn't look like White, like he encounters Knight F6 in response to D4 very often. And so I felt, and that's my normal response as black anyway, so I was in my comfort zone, and I'm playing an opening that he probably wasn't prepared for, the Grunfeld, which is a pretty good opening. I like it as black. Gives me a lot of ideas, but I do need to be careful, of course, because there's always the chance for a mistake. So D4, Knight F6, and I usually forget the idea of the order of when to play D5, and I'm pretty sure I had to in this game. Standard responses here, preparing for bishop G7, I wasn't really used. I wasn't. This I'm saying this was kind of a curveball for me because I'm not used to players playing here. Usually used to players playing here. The knight c3, and from here it's usually a matter. I'm pretty sure you go here, right away, on move 3. And what happens is usually this happens, and I don't think white would want to take here. Queen gets, obviously not there. That's just losing a pawn. But it gives them nice attacks along. Let me stand, double check. All right, along this diagonal. But so usually what happens is white will continue developing, or no, yeah, yeah, this is what I was talking about. Yeah, continue developing from here, and black, or possibly attack this way. Yeah, I think this is the main line. Developing the pawns in exchange for some development for black with getting rid of the knights, and from here there is an attack along the diagonal, but white has a lot of play, and this kind of reminds me of I forgot what it's called, but there's a opening like oh wait, no, where okay, I think it's yeah, it's for, no, yeah, here it is, and then no, one of these openings where where white gets the bishops out, but the black takes a bunch of pawns. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So usually, oh no, yeah, here, oh, there it is, yeah, and then black gets this, and this is about as far as the, no, I'm not right there. Some options for white here, but black's gonna castle. It's kind of an opening, so to speak, and I do have more theory. I don't want to memorize too much theory, but I feel like it's a good opening for me because it allows me to play dynamically. Probably gonna push this pawn after getting the bishop out, but that's not what happened in the text game of the game. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I can. This couldn't have happened this game because this knight. I feel like playing d5 now, be a little bit skeptical here. Let's see. I don't know that white wouldn't want to allow that. Let's see. And then yeah, it's looks like a little bit better for white here. I don't know about, I mean, I guess and also I don't have this pawn here anymore. I guess if I was going to play that way, I'd rather just play d6, because that would, or e6. Not, because then I could play this knight. Let's see, let's just say, yeah, this is just so much development for white. I don't like that. Right, so I just decided to continue with the Indian development. I thought about this for some time, about going here for some time. I don't think I saw that exact variation. I just thought it was too soon. And knight c3, and then I went for d5. I felt like it was safer with this bishop here. It gives me a little bit more development. plays e3 for some reason. I think this is the first mistake. I feel like white could have. I mean, white could have even just went here. And I feel like white could be doing okay here. Possibly, well, there's even this check here. Go here and then take an attack on this pawn because there's no real way. I mean, I had to move the bishop again. It does have an attack along this diagonal. It's not really too much of. I think white's doing okay. Can defend the queen again. Now that's kind of parallel here with the extra knight, and I think this bishop is. I don't know. It looks okay for white. It looks okay for black. Not really sure, but here I feel like this is a bit too slow. I just wanted to get the bishop out because I was wanting to get rid of white having the idea of ever pushing this pawn again, getting rid of this pawn defender, and it's defended by the knights. So, but I just wanted to get rid of that. Also thinking of developing my knight to d7, my knight b d7, and I don't know. I just thought that would be safe. Develop the bishop instead of locking it in. I was okay with this. The check kind of gives me some tempo, I feel, because now I'm defending that knight. So that I feel like this is a bit of a mistake here. Where would white play instead? I mean, even taking this knight here. But I mean, that's probably not that great. Even just developing, getting ready to castle, and then I would develop, but white wouldn't have any. Usually, not too great of an idea to rush in, unless you have a solid tactic that you've calculated, is what I found. Black trade ecosystem, be pretty standard right here. Possibly develop here. You can have the queen out eventually, kind of keeping the queen along here, because now if black plays here, can't really do much with this knight because this queen's only queen's defended by the bishop, so there's a lot of play here going on. But e3 happened, and yeah, kind of underwhelming. I feel like it gave me a lot of chances. I don't know if I could have played something better here, playing maybe just developing the knight here. But I also didn't like the chance. I didn't like putting my queen here. It does kind of. Maybe that is better. Just defend the bishop there, and now this bishop is pinned to the king. I mean, I guess I could castle here. Lots of opportunities. Eventually, maybe pushing this bishop out, and it has to go back all the way back here anyway. Possibly trade off, so you now have maybe castle here, push it off, and then there could be a trade here. I don't know. This looks better for black. It looks like black has a lot more space, especially with the queen in the center. It does have a little pressure because this is pawn here, but eventually, queen can escape to here, possibly here, or even I don't know, all sorts of ideas here. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, so I feel like this was kind of a wasted move. I didn't really see the need to exchange here because I feel like this gives white a lot more space. Also, this bishop can only really go back. I mean, this bishop can go here possibly, but that's just weird. Can't go back. These are off limits. Capturing here, it's going to upset my pawn structure, but I was pretty much okay with that because I felt like this gave me a lot more of an attack. If he defended here, then I guess I could do this, and I guess he should castle castle there. Yeah, that's that probably would have been better. I feel like White's doing okay here. Bishop is kind of useless there. I mean, yeah, let's see, instead of that. Yeah, that's losing a knight, so I wouldn't want to go there. Well, not losing a knight, it's getting the knight back. Okay, so... oh. I could probably just do Desperado here even, but not really. I don't think so. Yeah, and also allows the bishop to come out, but it's, you know, defended by the queen. Not so great. I mean, my position was kind of wonky because of this pawn move. I couldn't really develop. For a while in this game, I was having trouble developing this knight. So that was one of the problems with that pawn move, but I felt like I didn't like the alternatives of not moving that pawn. But again, you know, if my opponent used more of their time, probably would have been able to punish me a lot more severely. Because there was a lot of mistakes happening here. Yeah, now White's getting ready to attack here because now the queen and the pawn's defending. I castled because I calculated if I took here, I feel like this is better for White. So, and you know, let's just say I make a useless move here. Well, not too useless. This is still this was what I was calculating. You know, it's keeping those squares in check. Plus, this file, you know, the bishop's here, and I can't really see White coming in with the rooks. It would take, let's see, one. Well, after castle, it would take one. Yeah, let's see, one. Let's go. 2, 3, and then not even an option because now the pawn's there. so that doesn't work. How's White gonna get the rook over there? These pawns are gonna be blocking. Can't go here. Can't go here. You know. Now let's just say he got rid of this, and then I go here. It would take a lot of turns, and I wouldn't be making... Oh, yeah, I could block him there even more. Take this pawn. I guess just do stupid stuff like this. Yeah, and I mean, that's a lot of moves, and I could have been doing stronger moves than that, so I wasn't really worried about it. I just... Oh no, this is a variation. Okay. Yeah, I was okay with this, and started attacking this pawn. I have to deal with that. It's protected. This, after I develop the knight, this pawn's gonna be hanging, but there's no real way. I started putting all my pieces on light squares, and it's because White has all of his pawns on dark squares, kind of making my bishop weak, which, as we see later, I kind of make a trade offer with that bishop because I feel like White's dark bishop ends up with more potential than my dark bishop. And so I just started putting all my pawns on light squares so there's no possibility of any kind of attacks. And eventually putting this knight here. Yeah, he did come in attacking this, but you know, that allows me... This basically allows me a free move. I think this is forced. Obviously not sacrificing my rook. Yeah, so I was really... This was definitely a blunder. I don't know if this was a misclick or what, but at this point I felt like I had a lot of good chances. He still put a lot of pressure on me, so we'll see as the game goes on, but I don't know why White didn't just castle here. Connecting the rooks, keeping the king safe. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he wanted to march somehow, like, and push a pawn forward and use the king to attack, but that generally doesn't work. That would have been the right answer, I feel like. Okay, finally developing the knight. I can't really go anywhere. I was trying to think a little bit kind of more longer term with this knight, possibly coming over here and here to c4 via b6, and then started this is where I started having to really think and like calculate things. I didn't feel like I was straight up winning or anything at this point. I was thinking of, you know, if white's threatening to push this pawn, but I didn't think it was a big deal because I could just take with this pawn. But I wanted to get this knight involved because that attack with the rook would not work because of these two rooks that are connected and not even on the file. So sometimes, excuse me, sometimes being on the file isn't always isn't always that great, because if you don't really have a solid plan of attack with other pieces involved, then getting to the back rank isn't that great because the rooks will just take care of it. And I guess maybe he's thinking of doubling up the rooks, but see, this is, you know, white responded pretty well for here. Every one of my moves. See, for now, I had to calculate this for a while. I said, if you went here, you could just take, and, you know, I do have this pawn here covering these squares, but I also didn't, I just didn't feel like that was, you know, that there's always a possibility of that, and then I can't really defend that pawn, and also he's going to double up his rooks. That's one of the things I think I was thinking about. But instead, let's see, I moved to a5 because I was planning if he... Oh, okay, I was worried about this pawn push, mostly. Because of this rook defending it and the knight defending it. Okay, that was the big reason why I didn't want to play knight c4. This goes here. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that... Okay. Yeah, I was worried about this pawn push, but now with a5, if he pushes the pawn, I attack the bishop, and I can start thinking about how I'm going to work with these pawns. Bishop b2. Okay, yeah, then I can line up this. Yeah, I can line up this, and because then I can move the rook away from this pawn, because that's the whole reason this bishop was here, was it was attacking this pawn here on e7, and I really wanted to bring that pawn up and start trading off the pawn for the bishop, but now he has the pawn there, I mean the bishop there, so I'd have to do that a little bit more carefully, or maybe even just moving up to e6. But after a5, black came in here, and I thought this was a mistake. Because he just, oh, not really a mistake. It just kind of shuffles back and forth. This, I could have moved the rook in here, but I just didn't really like this. I mean, I guess this is okay, but I wasn't really feeling it. I wanted to keep safe, and this is a forcing move, because can't move here because the pawn, can't move here because this pawn, and then just it has to move back. Or if you just ignored it, then I just trade off, and then I do this anyway. Oops. Or I claim this file, or I claim this file, or even just stay here and just push this pawn, keeping pressure on this file. Lots of, oh yeah, oh, even better, yeah, if you did that, then well, that's not that great. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, definitely not. This is, yeah, usually my first 1 second thoughts are not that great, so it's a good thing that I had 45 minutes this whole game. Right, so Oh, that wasn't the text. E5. Yeah, and I just started making this attack. I was biding my time. Didn't try to do anything too fancy. Just played it safe, lined up my pieces. He doubled up the rooks, and this started to get a little tricky. Because if I don't... if he pushes this pawn, that ends up in white's favor. Oh, plus that's... yeah, if... I guess I have to... I'm not able to defend that. I have to keep that knight there. I guess I can make a move such as maybe... Oh, wait, after... Yeah, I can make a move like this, possibly. Then I was worried about this pawn move. Well, maybe not too much. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I calculated for most of those variations. It kind of ended up a lot like that. Plus that's like sacrificing a bishop. And that's a lot of tempo, because now it's pinning the knight, which is why not a good idea. I should have just castled. From this point, it's kind of downhill. Let's see this. For white. Yeah, this is where I said, okay, well, he's lining up the... I can just pretty much have to... I force this, because if he does something else, maybe defending the bishop, then I can just take, and now his bishops are no longer... I mean, his rooks are no longer aligned. I can start just playing defensively and work with my knight. I feel like my knight's a little bit better than his. Well, it's a little bit awkward, but oops, a little bit awkward, but has a lot of options. But he took that, and obviously I can't take with the rook. If I take with the rook, he can start. Not really too much you can do. Maybe go here. Trade. And I guess now I could go back here. And, oh yeah, I was worried about the pawn endgame. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And his king's more towards the center. And this knight is able to move in a lot of directions. And I just didn't think that was worth it. Pawn up in the endgame with just knights is, if not a draw, at least a loss, and then a loss. And I didn't want to lose. I had plenty of options. So, well, I didn't want to draw either. This is what ended up happening. Trade. And I had this attack here. And if he takes here, and I got this attack on this pawn, and I could also do this, but the same problem with the pawns. So he's attacking the knight. This was kind of interesting. I kind of thought I would do better with the rook. My rook seems a little bit more active. And these pawns are all kind of lined up for it. So I threatened this pawn. I didn't quite see this move. So I would say this is kind of a good move here. Now my counterplay is taken, but I had this check and move my knight to safety. It takes the pawn though. That was an issue. But he can't move this pawn without losing it. You can't keep it without losing it. You can't defend it. Can't defend there. If he moves the rook, then I can attack it that way. And here, getting another pawn, and I can't take the rook. But I feel like this gave me a good spot for my knight, and now I'm attacking this twice, and now there's no way to defend this pawn. If he defends it this way, oh, well, I guess we still get this endgame situation. Oh, right. Oh, right, because this, if you move, yeah, you can't move. You can move here, I guess. But as soon as this happens, I guess you can move his knight here, here. I'm not really sure what I was. I think I calculated something that was okay for me. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking. Oh, this was definitely a blunder here. This is the reason. See, White had a lot of fight left, if you haven't noticed by now, because those extra pawns really kind of. I don't want to trade off pieces down when I'm down pawns. I only have 3. He has 5, and he has a pass pawn. So White's actually wants to trade pieces here, and I feel like because after this, I had this check, and then I won the pawn back, and I got 2 pawns back. So now it's even pawns, and I have a more active position, I feel. But let's see, what could have White done here? Let's try to think about it for a minute. Defending this pawn. Oh, it was White to move. Get this knight to safety. Well, then he loses the pawn. Still up a pawn, but now, yeah. Now I think this works, because now I no longer have the check. So if I take the pawn, let's see. White was threatening to attack my knight, which is basically the idea behind White's move here. He wanted to advance this pawn, but I had the check with the rook. If White played elsewhere, yeah, I almost think rook c7. Right, if White played elsewhere, then I still have this check, and can't move. Oh, that's checkmate. Yeah, so if White moves elsewhere, that's checkmate. So I guess maybe that was forced. Yeah, I didn't even see that. Wow. So, never mind, good job. I think that's the only move. Let's see. Avoiding checkmate. That helps black. Okay. Well, I don't really. I guess there's no way to avoid that. I mean, what else is. Yeah, black. Yeah, so I didn't even see that. I didn't calculate a checkmate. I assumed that. I saw this move. It must have been my instinct, because I was planning on taking that pawn. So I need to stop thinking too deeply. I need to think a little bit like, okay, do I have any checkmates first? Okay, that's one of my bad habits, is I start looking at strategy and I look deeply before and I look positionally before I look at the obvious forcing moves, which is one of my bad habits. Even with so much time on my clock, it's been one of the things that I'm getting better at it, but it's one of those things I need to fix, because I have had many games where I had a mate in 1 and I just lost it, and from here it just goes really downhill. And this move right here, definitely a blunder. I'm not sure what White was planning. I guess 42 minutes on the clock, there's really no excuse. I'm sorry, What Cost Victory. I played you before. You're a good opponent, but I feel like you make a little bit too many instinctive moves, because I can see the reasoning behind this. You want to start, trading off pawns because, well, now there's no longer a pawn advantage, but trading off pawns, trying to go for a draw. But, you know, maybe was thinking about this even. And now, well, now you're defending the knight, but there's still the rook. And let's say instead of that you did save the rook. Well, now I win the knight. Well, not really win the knight. But, I mean, this might be a draw. Oh, no, this is not a draw. Definitely not. Line up here. Maybe got some forcing moves. Maybe here instead. And, yeah, what's white gonna do here? I mean, this is inevitable. Maybe go back, but even this is still winning. Down rook, but I don't know. There's got to be other moves. Even this saves the rook. Attacking the knight, but now you can attack my rook, win the pawn back, but there's still a lot of play. Could go for a draw. White could try to play here. No, that doesn't work. Yeah, there's lots of play for white from here. Besides sacrificing the rook. Yeah, there's lots of options. Even just going back here. Yeah. I think the check might be the best here. Oh, no, I can't go back there. Oh, yeah, that loses the knight. So, not really losing the knight. Yeah, losing the knight. But at least it's not a rook. And still some play here. But, yeah, it just went downhill really fast. After losing a rook, usually impossible to come back from a sacrifice like that. Plus now I can freely sacrifice my knight, which I don't think my opponent was really expecting. Most people I've noticed, especially around 1600 and below, don't really seem to think about material advantage too often. And I've noticed people don't really consider, like, most people below 1600, I think, would see that this is they would say, oh, why would you sacrifice your knight? And I'm like, well, it's not really sacrificing it because you already gave me a rook, and I'm just giving you back. I got a pawn, and I got a pawn back. I got a pawn and a rook for a piece, which is 6 to 3 if you're going to use bare bones calculation, piece value, which is still a piece up. So from here, it's just a matter of endgame. I may have I probably didn't play this as efficiently as I could have, but I knew I was up material, and I just had to look out for forks with the knight, which at this point there's just a knight, so even if I lost everything, it would still be a draw. Pretty much have a guaranteed draw from this point. And, well, yeah, a guaranteed draw at the minimum, because there's no way white can win with only king and knight. And I just had to play it safe, move my rook way to the other side, start protecting that, and this allows me to advance it. Not really that exciting from here. This was a mistake. I can see white wanted to attack here, but all I had to do was defend it. Can't attack this pawn. I can advance it. If he wants to trade the pawn, I can still have the rook, and I have a king and a rook endgame, which is pretty textbook. I can cut him off here. I can always just move here. Stays towards the center. And, oh, well, I guess I would have to go here. And eventually, yeah, this is a pretty standard endgame here. Do a waiting move, and then I can, let's see. No. Oh yeah, and force him back. Do the same thing. And that's checkmate right there. So I already calculated that it was already over, and he resigned right here. Well, I guess I learned something in this game, a couple different variations, and basically to look for checkmates, because I might have a mate in 1 or a mate in 2 forced. Even if I'm thinking strategically and positionally, a mate in 1 is always going to be better. So look for checks, then look for captures, then look for threats, and if you can't find any of those for you, then look at your opponent and see if they have any checks, they have any captures, they have any threats. And if you still don't find any, then you think positionally. Then you think, okay, how can I strengthen my position? Can I make this pawn structure better? Can I, get this piece more active? That's generally my thought process. Is I go over checks, captures, threats for me, and then if I find none of those, I look for my opponent's checks, my opponent's captures, and my opponent's threats. And then if that all fails, usually, obviously, the only thing it would fail completely is the beginning of the game. There's no checks, there's no captures, there's no threats for either side at this position. So here you think, okay, I need to think positionally, and then you say, okay, I'm going to control the center, and then that's the way the game goes from there. And then you can do something like, oh, well, I'm threatening, I don't have any checks, so I don't have any captures, so I have a threat, which is I can threaten to capture this piece, but it's not really a threat, because if I capture the piece, the queen is there. But either way, I'm thinking about it before I make a move. And that's how I'm starting to avoid blunders, which is the biggest problem I feel I have. And I think it's the biggest problem for most players, especially under 2000. Well, this was definitely a great post-mortem. I'll probably go back and analyze this in a couple of days or a week or so, or maybe never. I hope you all have a great day, and to everyone in Team League, good luck in the rest of the season. T73. This was a good round 1 for. I'm happen to be on the team Rainbow Verde. I think I suggested. Rainbow Warriors, and I'm on the Verde team, which is the Areckx team, or the lower rated team, because there's like 2000s in the team, and I'm not really that high rated. I'm trying to climb up, but I suggested that the team mascot be Nyan Cat to match the rainbows. Anyway, as you can see, chess is not all about rainbows and sunshine. It's about punishing your opponent, destroying them. But then, after the game, you can become friends. Once the game's over, then you have the luxury of smiling. But during the game, no way. Well, have a great weekend, everybody.